Hey, welcome back guys. This video is all about wood rounds. So today I'm bringing you 2 wood round DIYs. So without further ado, let's get crafting. So this first DIY, I'm using this sign I picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I'm gonna use some glue gun with a scraper tool to remove the glitter from this board. Although this is MDF board, it was very sturdy and I figured it would have done the job, so I went right ahead in using it. So when I was done removing the glitter, I used a damp paper towel to remove the excess. And then I flipped it over. I'm now using a dinner plate which was wide enough, 10 inches I believe, to give me a circle, and then I'm gonna use my utility tool to cut the board out. So here we have our circle all ready for our project. So I'm using the sanding block to just sand down the edges, and then the sand off the front, the little glitter that was remaining, and then I use a damp rag to just remove that. Now I'm going to be painting with some chalk paint or acrylic paint this is. So I gave one coat first, and then I realized that I needed to put my gloves on because it's going to be messy, and then I gave that one coat, allowed it to dry both sides, and then I flipped it over and gave one coat as well, and then I dried them with my heat gun and then gave it a second coat. I made sure that it was dried properly before I moved on. And now we are ready to begin our decorating. So I'm scoring 2 lines with probably with about 3 inches wide. Then I took my masking tape, that's all I had at the time. You can also use painter's tape. And I'm covering the area that I want to remain white. So when I was done with that, I took some brown acrylic paint and my chip brush, and I'm going in diluted with some water and wiping off the excess, and I'm just putting on brown paint over the 2 sides. And when I was happy with the look that I wanted it to appear as real wood. I took the heat gun and I dried it, and then I went in with some Mod Podge. I started using this small foam brush and realized it wasn't working out, so I went for the broader brush. After I applied the Mod Podge, I went in again with a heat gun and dried that. And this is what it looks like so far. This welcome sign I had taken off a Dollar Tree decor sign which I used for another project. And now I'm going to be removing the tape. So I am taking the welcome sign, I gave it 1 coat of black paint off camera. Now I brought this container out because I'm going to be using it to transfer the words onto tape. I went through this process extensively in my previous video, as well as you'll see that in the next DIY coming up. But what I'm doing, I'm just trimming down the paper and taping it into the dish, and then I'm gonna pour some water over that and leave it to soak for 5 minutes. I intended to use some fix-it-all glue to glue the welcome sign on, but then I decided to do the bow first. So here I am cutting strips of ribbon, and this is a wired ribbon, 3 strips 3 different sizes, and then I glued them down together. And after I glued them together, I then cut another piece. I was trying to make a bow, but because of the wire on the inside, it was very difficult, so I had to slit that piece in two and then glue them on with some hot glue. And after I did that, I took a piece of twine and just wrapped that around the center, and that's just to give the middle of the bow. Like I said, this ribbon was very difficult to work with, so I had to use the twine. And then when I did that, I'm now ready to glue this onto the board, but then first I trim the ends. I then took some flowers as well as some greenery, boxwood pick. These are my favorite. And then I just lay them down, as well as some leaves from the flowers, lay them down, or made sure I had them even, and then I glued them on and then glued the bow on top of that. And now I lost the footage to show you how I got the words down, but you can see how I did it in the video coming up. I then took some wooden beads, a piece of twine, and made something for the hanger. And this DIY is done. I am loving how this turned out. Now we're moving on to the second round wood. This I got from Walmart, and what I'm doing, I'm just removing the staple. Then I took some white paint. I gave this 2 coats. I had to let it dry properly before I could apply the second coat. I used the heat gun and dried it properly, and here we are now ready to decorate. Now I'm using the same piece of tape that I had used for the DIY earlier, and I took the ruler, drew a line down the center, and now I'm taping that down. And I am going to use some quick dry yellow paint. Use my sponge brush and applied that. I gave it 2 coats. First, let it dry properly, and then the second coat on top of that. Now it's all dried, I'm removing the tape, and while I was removing the tape, a little part or a section of the yellow paint lifted, so I'm just going back in with the brush to cover that. And then I went over the surface with some Mod Podge. That will help to keep the paint intact, as well as give it some sheen. And I applied the Mod Podge on both sides. Then dried it with the heat gun. You have to make sure that it's dried properly, or you're gonna have the paint lifting and smudging. So here I am now using the technique which I mentioned earlier. This word is the word home, and it was already taped to the paper. The tape was already on there and soaked. So now I'm removing the paper, and I'm just going to use a sharp edge, not too sharp, to remove, to make sure that all the paper is lifted, and you won't be losing the print. It's not coming off any at all. And then I took the scissors and trimmed that down just enough. And once I have it trimmed down to how I want it, I just tape that on, and it's secured. So now I am going in with flowers to decorate, and I just turn the camera around so you can have a better angle as to how I'm doing this. So I took some green leaves, some boxwood pick, evenly distribute them on the top section of the board, glued them on, and you can glue on or choose to use whatever you decide to use. I took some ribbon, burlap ribbon, as well as a lace ribbon from the Dollar Tree. Tie both of them into a bow with twine around the center and glued that on. I also use a little dab of the hot glue on the edges to prevent them from fraying. I then took a piece of twine, some wooden beads, knocked the ends of the twine, glued them on or glued it down with some hot glue, and then took a craft stick and covered it. Took 2 little flowers, glued those into the center of the bow. Yay, we made it to the end of the video. Guys, I am loving these 2 wood rounds. Let me know in the comments down below which of these is your favorite and whether you would want to try something like this. If you like content like this, you can click this video or you can watch this playlist. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified every time I upload a new video.